Thank you, Sarad. If you're happening to just be joining us and missed the panels earlier on, I'll have you know that we'll have questions at the end of all of our three panelists having shared. So thanks again, Sarad. And next we have Susana Martinez, who is the director of the Latin American Youth Center's Promoter Pathway, which is an intensive case management model for disconnected youth in the DC and Maryland areas. Prior to her work with the Promoter Pathway, she launched the Latin American Youth Center's first congregate care facility for young girls in the foster community, which is called the Teen Bridge program. And as you see here, the title of her presentation is The Promoter Pathway, an innovative client management model for disconnected youth. So join me in welcoming Susana.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I wanted to just briefly also give a little bit of information about the Latin American Youth Center. As introduced, we are in the DC area and we serve primarily Prince George's and Montgomery County. We are a multi-service organization that has been in the community for over 40 years and has expanded to have a number of different service areas, including educational enhancement, wellness, workforce, housing, mental health and substance abuse treatment on our various sites. So we serve on average, or at least in the last year, served about 4,000 youth in the region. And the diversity of our population really, I think, reflects the neighborhoods where we are located, which is about 60% Latino and 40% African American. And I should actually mention that we do serve youth from all 8 wards in DC. So I was happy to hear that you worked over in Southeast. So we've really expanded to try and make sure that we are available to any youth that might benefit from any of our services. So many of you might be familiar with the term disconnected opportunity youth. And this was before, I would say, that language even started. We were asking this question at the LAYC, was to better understand who these youth were, how could we serve them? While we had countless youth walking through our doors for a variety of different services and programs that they might participate in, we began to notice that there were youth that obviously we lost somehow, some way. They just stopped coming. We didn't know where they ended up. We weren't sure what happened. Or we had youth that came through our doors that just had multiple barriers. There were so many struggles and situations in their lives, in their homes, in their communities, that every time we felt that one was addressed, there was another one just waiting behind that door. So we started looking a little bit more into understanding this population. Nationally, it's 1 in 7 teenagers between the ages of 16 and 24 are disconnected, meaning that they are not in school or working. It seems to be pretty evenly distributed almost in terms of the gender breakdown of male and female. But of course, where it is very disproportionate is when you look at racial and ethnic background and the fact that Latino and African American youth are greatly overrepresented in this population. So looking at that, we looked even more specifically into the DC region, and there was some research conducted by the Office of the State Superintendent to identify that there were approximately 9,000 low-income disconnected youth just in the DC area. And so we began to explore and see what could we do to try and re-engage some of these young people and help them deal with the barriers that they have been facing. A lot of what I really actually appreciate the video that was shown earlier in acknowledging the systemic racism in all of these different areas that all of these different barriers have been in place for many years. And a lot of these young people that are in this situation did not end up there overnight. So recognizing that all of those barriers are going to be a part of this the solution. But when we looked at that, the first thing that we really discovered was, of course, the lasting relationship with a caring adult. When we went back and questioned some of our young people to see What was the greatest impact that the LAYC had on you? No one came up and said, oh, that teen health promoters program, that was great. They were like, oh my God, is Kelly still there? She was amazing. Is Juan still there? He really helped me through X, Y, and Z situation. It was always the people. It was always the relationship with the different members at the LAYC that really made a difference. So we really used that to start looking at how we wanted to design a model, something to help work with these young people. So first we realized that we really needed to look at something that was tied to the community. We needed to make sure that we were really looking at what the needs were within the different communities that we were serving and making sure that there was a connection. Then we realized that there needed to be consistency across services and programs, that just having these isolated programs and having a youth participate in tutoring here and then magically expecting them to go to a substance abuse prevention program over there was not going to work. So how could we provide that kind of consistency? Commitment to the work. And this is where it is truly, truly a commitment. I say minimum of 2 years, it's really more of a minimum of 4 years. So we were looking at designing a program that would allow for a long-term intervention strategy. That is not easy when you're talking about looking for long-term funding, when you're looking at trying to keep long-term staff. This is truly in and of itself a big challenge for a lot of organizations to try and create a model that will demonstrate that commitment to the young people and to the community. And then, of course, expertise in youth development and case management. You know, as much as the relationship was key, we realized that this is not just a pure mentor relationship. We're really talking about an experienced intensive case manager that knows how to navigate those systems. That diagram of the arrows, I mean, that's real. And I mean, we have trained professionals that still sometimes struggle to navigate those systems for their clients, but that's really what we were looking for. And of course, at the heart of it, really having that relationship be key for the development of the program. So with that, we developed the Promotor Pathway. And I should introduce, actually, in case some of you are not familiar with the term, it's Promotor, which we adopted from, it's an approach in the Latino community that was surrounded around public health, that you would identify members of the community to go into the community and help spread information about public health and encourage community members to seek preventative care. So we really wanted to adopt that term because we felt that that was a better descriptor, I think, of our model versus just case manager or anything other than that. So we were targeting youth between the ages of 16 and 24 and really wanting to provide sort of that holistic approach in terms of services, making sure that the promotors were generalists, really providing coordination across different programs to address multiple needs. And then, of course, you know, our hope was that there would be positive outcomes across academic, employment, healthy behaviors, and that this would be something that would be seen as a benefit to the community, to the city, to the region at large. So we developed a risk assessment tool. I think what we were very thoughtful about was that we really did want to target the youth that everybody else struggles to work with. You know, the ones that often get kicked out of other programs, the ones that are not necessarily engaged in a lot of the services that may be already offered to them. We were really looking for that hard to reach, hard to serve population. And so knowing that, we created a risk screening tool, which was meant to be very non-invasive, just a series of yes or no questions. And in our assessment, a youth has to score high enough to qualify for a promotor. Usually, a lot of times you see these assessment tools are used to say, oh no, you scored too high. You need more needs than what we can offer. We're the flip side of that. We said, those kids, bring them to us. We want the kids that people don't know what to do with. So the questions obviously cover a range of different areas. As I said, a lot of these youth are impacted by multiple barriers, multiple systems that have brought them to the situation that they're in. So looking at things like no GED, unsafe home environment, mental health issues, criminal justice involvement, and then, of course, you know, secondary risk factors could also make them eligible for a promotor. and that if they had multiple of those barriers, they would be eligible. So what we do is that we identify the youth. It is voluntary. We have been very strict that this is not to be a mandated program, and the youth is matched with the promotor. We really focus on building the relationship, conducting needs assessments, and doing what we call small wins. Very early in the relationship, we really believe that it's important to celebrate the small accomplishments that can often seem like very small accomplishments, but they're huge for these young people. We often have young people that before we can do anything and refer them to any sort of program, they need to get a copy of their birth certificate. They need to get an ID, a school ID, because Lord knows what happened to their original school ID. Going and getting those small things accomplished can be so motivating to the young person, and it's something that we really tend to rally around and make a big deal of, to really sort of have that strengths-based focus as we move forward. And then the support is just ongoing. We're really focusing on youth-driven goals, making sure that we're constantly reassessing for needs and serving them in that way. A lot of what the promoters themselves do is, again, offer their expertise and knowledge of community resources. One of the big keys to our team that we seek for with the promoters is that they really do match the diversity of the population that we serve. We want to make sure that we're able to match that. And we do monitor the caseload so that one promoter will never serve more than 20 to 25 youth, max, ever. No matter what agencies want to try and impose on us, we always keep that cap. And several of our promoters are former LAYC participants. As an organization, that's something that LAYC has been committed to, is hiring former participants to become staff. And we think that specifically in this model, that's really important to have former youth participants serve. So as I mentioned, some of the things that we work towards, building the relationship, and the ongoing, I can skip through this. We do track a number of different outcomes that we are trying to measure both internally and externally through also the ETO system, which is a blessing and a curse. But our long-term goals, of course, are around educational attainment, employment, and healthy behaviors. Now, healthy behaviors is obviously a very broad spectrum, and this is where it is a very case-by-case, depending on what the needs of that particular youth are. We look at anything from risky sexual behavior, substance abuse, violence, domestic violence, preventative health, whatever it is that is in that young person's life that could be a barrier to their success is what we will target. This graph just really kind of briefly describes how many youth are working towards any one of those different outcomes. On average, most of the youth are working towards 4 outcome areas at a time. So they might be working on trying to get stable housing, as well as addressing some substance abuse issues, as well as trying to work towards their improving their attendance, whatever that combination might be. We're tracking that all at once. So we've been able to see some really positive outcomes with this model. We've seen in terms of academics, we've had a lot of our out-of-school youth, 59, be able to be re-enrolled in school. A lot of those youth have also gone on to graduate or obtain a high school credential. We've seen a lot of our youth enroll in post-secondary as well as vocational programs. And in terms of healthy behaviors, being able to obtain stable housing, increasing their knowledge of safe sexual behavior as well. And I did mention an external evaluation. We were part of a study with Urban Institute, and it was a randomized controlled trial study, which is not easy for a community-based organization to do. But we were committed to trying to get behind this evidence-based practice approach and have some solid research behind our work. So we were able to do the randomization. It was essentially a 2-to-1 ratio. So for every treatment youth, there were 2 control group youth. These were all youth that were recruited from within the LAYC. So there was no outside comparison group. This was, for the most part, I think, highly controlled for variables. We had a little bit over 470,000, 470 applicants into the program, and we tracked them at 6-month intervals. So baseline, 6-month, 12-month, and 18-month to see what progress was made. The final study actually is going to be coming out sometime in November. We're very excited. And in terms of the outcomes, the 3 strongest areas that we saw positive outcomes were around school engagement. Treatment group was highly more likely to be engaged in school. Parenting rates, we actually had a very high impact on pregnancy prevention, and this actually stood for males and females. And then safe housing. Our youth were far less likely to be in a shelter or have been homeless in the previous 6-month period. So, we're really hoping to expand on what we've learned and what the model has been able to achieve. We actually are now in the process of trying to replicate the model, and we have identified a few partners across the country, one in Oregon and one in California, where we are trying to implement a promotor pathway in their communities and helping them to set that up. So we're hoping that this is something that can benefit more young people and communities in the future. So. There was a video, but I don't think there's time.